Hi guys, May Flom here, and I've got some watercolors out here, and I've got a new Winnie and Walter stamp set. Really in love with this stamp set because look at the little leaves. I can see using all of these leaves in different ways. Beautiful flowers and stems. These images are all great one at a time, or you can layer them and use them together. What I have here, and you can kind of see it, is I stamped a bunch of images, but I stamped them one at a time and then heat embossed it with white embossing powder. And I did them one at a time, okay, in white embossing powder, and we are on, we are on watercolor paper. I can't remember the name. Hello, watercolor paper is what I'm using here. Nice thick paper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a couple layers of color here. First, I am going to mist this with water, and this is where watercolor paper is ideal because it's not going to mind a little abuse. And then I'm going to take a paintbrush and take a color. Let's see, we'll use red here on this one, and I'm just going to kind of touch it here, and you can see how because the paper is wet, it's taking off, but you can also see that because of the embossing, the color is kind of staying contained within the petals, which is really cool. Okay, and then I'll take a different color here and repeat with the other flower. And I'm not worrying about anything at all because, as I said before, this is layer one of color. And then you can see I'm going to go a little more bold and wild over here on my leaves and my stem, and not worrying about anything. This is not our final project. Just out of view, I have my little water cup over here. Okay, so I'm going to take another color. I think I'm going to go with orange and extend this out a little because now I really want to make sure that I get a little bit more color outside of the flower. Now this one, for example, is really hanging tight. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mist with a bit of water so that it will really get runny and wild. And you might be thinking, okay, but now it's all runny and wild. Yes, that's exactly what we want. What I'm going to do now is let it dry, but I am also going to just dab it with a paper towel, and then we'll do layer number two. Now, once everything is dry, I could repeat with another layer of watercolor like I was using. I could also take, what I have here are distress stains that are ink sprays that are in a water brush. I also have Zig Clean Color Real Brush watercolor pens. I don't recommend watercolor pencils. If you have mist, you could take a little bit of mist, make a little droplet, little pile of mist here, and then take a paintbrush and pick it up and use that. The key is you're going to want a sheer blendable color. And our next step, you can see that this particular flower really stayed very vibrant. Now the great thing about working with color mediums that are reactive with water, with moisture, is that they're going to work and play together. So I can take two different, totally unrelated color mediums here, and I can blend them together. I can get them to play nicely together. And if I don't like where it's going, if I look at this and go, ooh, wow, that's too much color, I can just take in a water brush, because again, these are mediums that are reactive with water, and I can take a water brush in here and blend it out. Watercolor paper, that's why we want watercolor paper, because it is really, really forgiving, and it'll let us really play with what we're doing and what look we're going for, exactly how much control we do or don't want to have. And if there is too much fluid, we can let it dry, or if there's just too much, you just take a paper towel and just lightly press where it's super damp, and it'll just kind of pick up that excess moisture. It'll also clean up your image a little bit. But you can keep playing with it, or if you're happy with that one, move on to the next one. And with these colors, what I'm doing, it's not so much, I'm not doing any real technique here, guys. I'm just coloring, and I am trying to kind of stay within the lines here, but it's not a super critical thing. We can absolutely play with if we want more colors, less colors, if I want there to be some blending. The one thing I will tell you is this technique that I like to do where there's kind of some watercolor background and then a little more vibrant main image that's stamped in white embossing like this. It's going to work better with vibrant colors. It's not going to work very well with super pastel because it's pretty down here, but as you can see, it's harder to really see the image. It's harder to tell what what exactly is going on. It's a little harder to see the beauty of your stamped image. And I like to come in with the water brush, not really squeezing, not really adding water, but just kind of rubbing around here so that the color really is covering, all the areas that I want it to cover. And then of course our greens, we'll come back in here for our greens, and always a favorite. And that green's a little more vivid than what I was wanting. I can come in with another. These clean color pens are pretty new to me. I'm still kind of playing with them, getting the hang of them, but I definitely like what they do, and I like that they are basically, they're watercolor pens. They're like what I use so often with my distress and my dilutions in the water brushes, and I really like that because it means that that's just more colors for me to pick from. That's just more ways for me to get the look that I'm after in various color mediums, color forms. So again, the lighter color, not quite as good for this because we want it to really stand out and be bold, but I can you see how I'm just kind of using a water brush here to mix colors and still give us that the varied, lovely colors that we can get from watercolor without a lot of time, or let's say it, without a lot of talent. I'm not being hard on myself here. I just mean that there's not a particular skill set. You don't have to be, super, super great at any one technique to do this. It would work with a wide variety of watercolor type mediums. If you only have, like the watercolor little palette like I had before, that would work fine. I like working with liquid colors a lot. I like working with liquid colors because I feel like I get such a pretty, pretty look. And one thing I want to do up here on these leaves, there's just not a lot of color behind them. I'm just going to kind of cover up with my hand the image part that I don't want to affect, and then I'm going to spray that with a little water just to get that color kind of rolling around on there. And I'll take, the Distress works the best for this. I'll just touch a little bit of color in here around, and it really works well. The Distress wicking and blending color in this way, it works, it really does a good job of bleeding, but not affecting, my actual color. So I'll kind of let that do its thing. I'll just very lightly tap it just to kind of blend it out a little, and I'll come back when that's dry and finish coloring there. In the meantime, I've got some more leaves down here and a stem down here that wants my attention. And I really do like when I have mediums that play well together that aren't of the same type. For example, what I'm finding with these watercolor markers, with my homemade watercolor markers, it's just so much fun to have all these colors to play with. And these Winnie and Walter stamps, oh my gosh, I can't stop coloring. I can't stop making cards and having fun with them because it's so much fun to just kind of imagine or reimagine. I'm just blending this out here because it got a little dark over here and I don't want it to be super dark. And I love with my water brush, I can just keep going outward and blending and blending and blending until there's not like a huge area where it's very obvious, that I've been tinkering with it there. So, all right. I like where this is going. I'll just give this a moment to dry and then maybe add a little more. Actually, I bet if I come in here with this, it'll be okay. Yeah, I'll add a little more color up in these leafy areas. And this is ready to get cut and turned into a card, a tag, a bookmark, whatever I like. I hope you've enjoyed this quick little tutorial. I will see you next time.